downtown Detroit, recording live. Prepare yourself for a hoppy drive. If you're chilling at home, pop that crowler and just kick back for the next 2 hours. It's the end of the week, so here's to the weekend. It's Better on Draft with Rob, Matt, Nick, and Ken.
And we are live, episode number 223, Better on Draft podcast. And this is a great day, a great show. Yesterday, we actually got to interview Representative Wenzel, which will be episode 223.5. So make sure you check that out so you can hear a little bit more about all the new crazy laws that are coming into Michigan. But starting off with the show, I am going to start off myself. Usually I pass it off to one of these other guys. So I do have talked to Jonathan Cole and made sure I got myself a little Bumble bee water. Is what they call it, bumblebee water. So their take on a seltzer, definitely not as keto as I look at this, and it says added sugars 10, but I guess I should have realized that when there was honey in there. And I also have an Oberon and an Oberon. So you'll realize why we have those Oberons here in just a second. But Dan, since you're the one that said the oh boy, I'll let you go next. How are you, and what are you drinking?
I'm doing good, enjoying the 110-degree weather. I'm pulling a Nick. I know he's not here, so I thought I'd pull his move for him. So I'm double fisting. I got a really good one here, though. I've got a mint condition from Bottle Logic. It's basically, if you like mint chocolate chip ice cream, it's mint chocolate chip ice cream in a can. Pretty damn good. I don't think you guys can get it out there, but if you ever can find it, it's definitely worth a try.
I wonder how close that is to the dirty milk, or how does that go at Right Brain? Dirty.
Is it the Girl Scout?
Dirty Girl Scout.
Naughty Girl Scout.
It's a Naughty Girl Scout.
Too many words.
This one, I'm not gonna lie, is night and day better. It's so smooth. It tastes like mint ice cream, mint chocolate chip ice cream was melted, poured into that can.
I was just offered to get some of that, and I passed it down. I may have to reach back out to him now.
Yep. And then I'm pulling in another one of your favorites. I've got from Parrish, the Rev Coffee Stout.
Ooh.
You just can't go wrong, especially on draft.
I finally had that.
What'd you think?
It's amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I know exactly what you guys are talking about now.
Yep. We're not making it up, Ken, if you haven't tried it yet.
I don't know if I have yet. I'll have to look for it a little bit more. You were talking that just Right Brain. I bought some more CEO Stout. I went all the way to Bush's to buy a 6-pack of beer, or a 6-pack of the Bumble water from Witch's Hat, and walked out with $100 bill. So that was my day yesterday. I definitely went a little too hard. But Rob, what's going on? What are you drinking?
Same old. Still got the same jobs. Still working my ass off. We're actually supposed to be going back in starting July 8th. So I've got a couple more weeks. We get the week of the 4th off for the plant shutdown. And then I supposedly go back in on July 8th, but, still working from home for the time being. And then now doing like triple duty, hosting trivia Mondays and twice on Wednesday, all from home for the time being until it looks like Herman's in Plymouth is going to be my first return back to hosting live. But right now I am drinking a Bell's Saturn from with the date of April 3rd, 2015.
I'm gonna ask you what year that was from. Holy crap.
That was back when you were in town, Dan.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. We were drinking those back then.
Still had a few left, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to crack one open and see how this thing looks. And, of course, it is in the Better on Draft glass.
Wendy, what's going on? What are you drinking?
She's on mute.
She's on mute.
I muted myself. I don't know what's wrong. So I was lucky enough this weekend to do a little road trip, and I got to go over to Grand Rapids. And so I am doing a double fist tonight. That probably didn't sound right.
It sounded fine until you said that.
So I've got an Easier Storm from Drafting Table and one from City Built as well. I think they're both fantastic beers. I'm not going to lie, I've already had a couple. But I think the whole concept of them working and doing that and then releasing the mix pack together is awesome. So
I feel like left out because I didn't pregame as hard as the rest of you guys. But as you could tell, a little bit of a trend here. Me and Rob both drinking Bell's. We do have a guest in our remote Zoom studio today. And why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do and what company you work for?
Sure. So I'm John Mallett. I am the VP of Operations at Bell's Brewery, and I've been brewing beer professionally for 30 some odd years. Been in Michigan for almost 20, sort of leading the beer production scene at Bell's. I love my job. I work with great people. We make great beer. I don't know. I just love what I do.
All right, and that's the interview. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for coming out. Great time.
So I guess my first question, which I always ask, is especially with those who have been in the industry for a long period of time, especially prior to the last craft beer bubble burst, kind of in the early 2000s. Where did you get your start, and how did you get your start?
Yeah, sure. So I, like many people, went to college, and when I was in the college, I drank a lot of beer, and I ended up living with a group of guys who are all food and beverage professionals. One of them was actually the beverage director at the Cheers bar. This is in Boston. So that bar, which is called the Bull and Finch. So CJ, he was the beer buyer there. There was a sous chef who worked upstairs, who was a good friend. We lived with him, and then another guy who did food and beverage over at the Lenox Hotel. And so we were drinking. We were all really interested in beer. Like back then, this is probably 85 or so, 84. We always had a keg of double diamond on draft in our kitchen. And we're drinking, always interested in really just goofy beers, drinking all over the place. And this is about the time that the very first breweries started to open up, the craft breweries started to open up in Boston. And I decided I was super interested in this. I was cooking my way through college. And I went to one of those breweries. I got a job there as a sous chef. And then when a position in the brewery opened up, I said, I'll take that. They said, well, you're not really going to take that because you'll make half of what you're making now. I said, no, I'd like to do that. So I went in there and started washing bottles. And within a month, I got hired because the head brewer had left. The assistant brewer took on the job of the head brewer. And within a month, he decided he was leaving. And so all of a sudden it's myself and another guy who are running the brewery 1 month in like 1986. And it was pretty crazy. So that was a place called Commonwealth Brewery, Commonwealth, as they would say there, right next to the Boston Garden, home of the Celtics and the Bruins. All your sports teams there. And I was there for a number of years, and then I went on to go to Siebel Institute in Chicago, which was my first time with any significant time spent in the Midwest. And while I was at Siebel, I remember I was drinking Bell's Amber. It was always pretty interesting beer. From there, I went on to Washington D.C. I ran a fantastic brewery there, kind of clear quality leader in the Mid-Atlantic. Started a company that built breweries, did a ton of work all over the country, really interesting projects, very specialized. And then from there, Larry Bell called me up one day and said, Mallett, I'm building a new brewery and you're going to build it for me. So I had known Larry for a while. He's quite a character. We really enjoyed each other's company back then and still do today. And so I came to Kalamazoo to build a brewery and ended up staying for now going on 20 years. So that's kind of my brewing history in a nutshell in terms of where I've been working.
So when did you leave the brew house, or are you still hopping in every once in a while to make a special John Mallett beer that everyone can get a chance to taste?
So usually when I get a chance to brew beer, it's like out of the country. And I say that because, we've got fantastic brewers at Bell's, very organized, codified SOPs and the way we do things. We've got a big crew. I don't add value there. There are people who know what they're doing much more than I am in terms of running the brew house day to day. I will tell you that I do get a chance to go, and do some fantastic guest brewing, different places, writing formulation and all that. Certainly, Friday's a great day. Today's Friday. Friday's a great day because that's the day that we get together at Bell's in the afternoon. We have a group called the BBT, or the Brewing Brain Trust. And this is really like all the super smart, long-term brewing manager folks, quality and brewing manager folks who manage this stuff, who manage sort of quality manifest at Bell's. And I think that's really where we're pulling levers and really doing great stuff. I will tell you that nobody in that BBT is in making brews in the brew house much. However, we're all pretty smart people. Everybody could certainly do that.
With the brain trust, have you guys had any happy accidents that turned into like a major release, or a release that you weren't expecting to do, but in turn like, oh wow, this is great. It might not have been what we were shooting for, but we could do that again.
Oh yeah, I mean, you have stuff like, things that have happened at Bell's. Like, I remember one point we had a batch of Two Hearted that was going through, and it got the wrong hop thrown in it. And it's, Two Hearted's 100% Centennial, and so you think, oh, maybe we could blend this away. And I'm like, well, what blend percentage gets you to 100%? How much beer do you have to put in there to make it 100%? And the answer is there can't be. So we end up with this beer that starts out, with a different hop, and it's pretty good. Turns out pretty well. Like, we ended up doing some dry hopping on it, kind of moving around. And of course, as soon as that starts happening, everything's changing. And I really think of beer formulation and beer creation as an iterative process where you're making constant small changes and dialing the thing in, zooming in closer and closer to it. And so I'd love to point to a beer where that's happened, but there's been a bunch of beers where that's happened.
Before I pass it off to one of my co-hosts, I do have one personal question that I think you might be the perfect man to answer. I do not like Two Hearted. I'm not an IPA fan. It's perfectly, it's just what it is. I actually like Centennial from Founders.
Okay.
Why does that happen when Centennial from Founders is a full Centennial hopped beer? Yep. I'm not an IPA fan. Like, how? Where's my disconnect? What am I missing? What's the difference?
I'll tell you, I do drink some Founders beers, and the folks up at Founders, they're the brewing staff there. We work on a lot of projects together, industry wide. I don't drink a lot of Centennial, so I wish I could tell you, like, here's the flavor that Centennial has that Two Hearted doesn't, or vice versa. So I can't really speak to that. I will tell you though that there's like the way that Founders, the sort of like where they want to select their Centennial hops and where we want to select our Centennial hops, not geographically, but within the harvest window. I think it's a little bit different. I don't know that, but I think that's the case. So it might have something to do with the maturity of the hop that's there. It could be brewing practice. It could be I'm not sure exactly what Centennial comes in at gravity-wise, but it could be something like that. I don't know. You've kind of piqued my interest, and as I started to answer the question, I'm like, damn, I haven't had that beer in a while. I should have that beer.
Wendy, you got a question?
I do. I'm actually wondering, so you don't get the chance to be in the brew house a lot. What is your favorite part of your job? We can tell that you really love working for Bell's. What's the favorite part of what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I mean, I oversee like a whole bunch of different stuff, but one of the things that I am just incredibly passionate about is brewing raw materials. And like, it's something I've devoted a lot of energy into over the years. And I will tell you that I think that in some ways, the brewer's art can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. And one of my favorites is that when the brewer gets out of the way, and by that I mean that you pick up a beer and you taste that beer and you taste all the way back to the farmer's fields. And so to me, this speaks about like being, selecting raw materials that are the right quality and then allowing those inherent attributes to just sing out. In some ways, sometimes the brewery almost becomes transparent, like you just can kind of see through it. I'll tell you that, there are beers that I drink from Germany, or you could give me this beer and I'd say that the malt for this beer came from a humid continental area because of the very subtle flavor cues that are in there. Things like a almost grape knee-high like character that sits inside a malt. So when you get out of the way with that stuff, it's important. To that end, we spend a lot of time on brewing raw materials, and that's a part of my job. That's a big part of my job, but it's a beloved part of my job to go and visit barley farms, malting concerns, the hop farmers, the hop merchants, like managing that supply chain of finding the best quality. Because when we have those flavors that are carefully selected, artfully, combined with artful brewing, careful packaging, and get it all the way, into somebody's glass, that to me is the real high art in the brewer's lexicon. So that's a place that that I love. I will tell you that if you've had a Two Hearted, or if you've had any of our beers, that that those Centennial hops, those essential hops in Oberon and all these other things, myself and a couple other people have selected every lot of hops that have gone into that for the past, I don't know, nearly 20 years, 15, 20, So, so rubbing individual lots, and we're, when we were going out to Yakima to do hop selection, we are tearing through like, in excess of 100 different lots, assessing them, ranking them, grading them, and then selecting them in proportion for blend to make our beers. That's something that I feel like I could open the valves and turn on the pumps and do the really important work at the brewery. But I'm also very effective at, figuring out like, here's where we buy malt and how we buy malt and why we're getting these malts and how we're going to assure that these malts remain unchanged.
Speaking of, go on.
I was going to say, just on my, as I left the brewery today, I had two calls. One was with one of our malt vendors, and one of them was with one of our hop vendors, and those are very close relationships. And some of that conversation is like, I hear you're going on vacation next week, but a lot of it is also like, how are you managing through this COVID thing? What are the implications? Some shutdowns and restarts, these kind of things. So very, very tight relationships and conversations up and down the supply chain, and that's I think a huge impact, especially for a brewery like Bell's. That is, we are trying to be pure as the driven snow and allow those quality ingredients to just shine through.
So being the vice president of operations, is that what you said?
Yeah.
There's something we hear nearly on every single craft beer enthusiast page ever. And I want to give you the opportunity to basically respond to this. And that says that
just looking fucking hilarious right now.
What's that?
I think somebody knows what the question's coming. And
we all do.
I'm shaking right now.
So this question is very simple. Why did you change the ingredients of Oberon, and why was it always better the year before? Why? That's not the real question. The real question is that why do you think people say that type of sentence? Because Bell's has stood very strong, stating that the ingredients are the same. Everything it's not changed. Why do you think people still to this day say it's different?
Well, we do change it every year just to fuck with people. No. I love the great comment is like, this year's batch of Oberon. Like, yes, we make one batch of Oberon. It's like 100,000 barrels, one batch. Woo, a lot of work. I think I can tell you why I think this occurs, and that is that we are interpreting sensory information as humans constantly. Like we walk in, you smell, you walk in a room, you're like, oh, somebody stepped in dog poop, or wow, those roses are just beautifully in bloom, the lilacs are ripping, right? And so, but we're well attuned to identify flavor and aroma. We're not well equipped to identify subtle changes. And so if I think about a dedicated Oberon drinker, somebody who loves a beer and drinks it regularly, they may go through and, Oberon Day comes, they buy some beer, they're drinking it all through the summer, and then fall starts to come and it's like, oh, you know what, I'm going to lay a supply in for the winter. And that beer, they were drinking that beer through, maybe into November, maybe into March. And then the next year's Oberon comes out and it's different. And this to me is about beer aging. I mean, one would not buy this year's roses, hold on to them, and then next year say, roses smell different this year. Roses are dead from last year. I'm sorry. There's a shelf life on roses and it's expired. So I think, and I'm not saying that beer is getting bad, it's just getting different. But that to me, it's like, it's sort of this heartbeat that occurs on an annual basis, and you try that out and you say, well, yeah, it's different. Yeah, people absolutely perceive it as different. And I believe that. I also believe that the act of beer drinking is highly, highly influenced by the circumstance at what we're doing. So like whether that is, I'll tell you, some of the most amazing beers that I've ever had have been times when I've been like, on vacation somewhere just beautiful and like, my God, this beer is, my wife and I are just having a great time, and how could this beer be better? Objectively, was the beer better? I don't know. But to me, it was better. Those were great beers.
So before I pass it off to Rob, because I know Rob's got a question that he's been itching to ask, Tito Huffman from the chat wants to know, what are you drinking right now?
Oh, right now I'm drinking an Incessant. So this is a Bell's beer that we just came out with that is, kind of a little hazy. It's in a big can. That's important. I like big cans. Oh no, that came out wrong. Never mind.
Oh, no, it's perfectly fine.
It was perfectly fine until you said something.
It was perfect. It's just pretty clear that you cannot lie. So I think we're good there. But I guess actually with you bringing up Incessant, that actually kind of pivots my question, because I was kind of thinking about how there's been it will just pretty much say a revolution of hazy IPAs that have come across in this state. Obviously, from Old Nation's M43 to Rogue's Flavorful 5 to, Witch's Hat's this guy. I mean, there's been a lot of hazy IPAs that have been out there. And they've been out there quite a while. So while all of the other breweries have been very fast and furious about putting out these hazy IPAs, Bell's has been kind of, I will just say, patient about putting things like Incessant and Official out there. And I guess I'm curious to just kind of talk about that slower release in coming out with those. And obviously I know that with being bigger production that may weigh into it a little bit, but I guess talk about, bringing Official and Incessant out at, a little later in the game than everybody else.
Yeah, sure. So I think about, I was talking to an East Coast brewer who's well known for kind of hazy beers, and he was talking about like the radical new stuff that's going on. I'm like, in terms of making like hazy hop forward beers, we made this beer called Solson back a while ago that was kind of hazy and hop forward, but so I will tell you that over the course of making Oberon, that I know that these beers change, and one of the ways that they change is they get clearer over time. And I think that for the beer lover that is looking for a hazy beer, they're expecting it to be hazy. I mean, it's on the label. It is a very different thing, and I know this as a brewer, implicitly. Very different thing to make a beer that you pour on, that you brew on site, you pour on site, 2-3 weeks later, it goes across the bar. Everybody's got a visual on it, versus being able to put something in a package, send it to, wherever, Arizona, wherever, and have that beer meet the customer expectations. I mean, the beer lover has an expectation that says hazy, that's going to be hazy. I will tell you that when we started doing this, when we were looking at this, we wanted to make sure that it was durable, that it had legs, and that we were going to be able to consistently meet customer expectations. To me, that is the definition of quality: is meeting the expectation of the customer or beer lover. And so I myself and one of the other members of the BBT dug into this a lot, and we were reporting back to the Brewing Brain Trust on a weekly basis on determining how we assure that these beers are going to be flavorful, fresh, hoppy, and hazy. And we did that for quite a while, and we learned a lot. I mean, I don't know if anybody here, I don't know if anybody here drinks rum chata, but the science behind that shit is fascinating.
Yeah.
Got a bottle of that in the cupboard somewhere.
Yeah, it's also fucking disgusting in my world, but whatever. Yeah. So, anyways, see, I digress. So, in terms of we wanted to make sure that when we made beer, that we were going to absolutely meet the expectations of the beer lovers, because who the hell wants a clear hazy IPA? And
right.
They exist out there. I will tell you, they exist out there. And one way to control it is to be able to sell it from the brewery the day you package it. Mm-hmm. Fantastic model. That's not a model that Bell's can do on a larger scale. And quite frankly, I love getting our beer out there to people all over the place.
Well, yeah. Speaking of all over the place, we have someone who lives somewhere else, and that's Arizona. Yep. Dan,
I'm glad you mentioned that.
What's the before I let you chat with Mr. Mallett over here? What's the heat index? There we go. There's a nice word. The heat index on people and how much they like Bell's out there or not like.
There's not a lot of Bell's out here. We get the two-hearted. We get Bell's Brown.
You got Bell's Brown. That's all you need.
Well, maybe. We don't get amber, which is actually kind of disappointing. It's the one I would actually grab on a regular basis if I could find it. We get the lighthearted, but other than that, you don't really see too much Bell's out here. You see a lot of other Michigan beers. You see Founders. You see things like M43 out here, things like that. But unfortunately, no Bell's as far as outside of those two or three.
All right,
just kind of disappointing.
Arizona.
Yeah. Anytime you want to send some amber out here, I'll be more than happy to help make that happen. Okay. But I got a question for you. I want to go back to you. You're involved with sourcing all of the malts, the hops, everything like that. How much does Bell's put into sourcing locally versus sourcing from other parts of the country? Do you put a big emphasis on sourcing from Michigan when you can, or where's the company's stance on that?
So in terms of sourcing locally, I love this. I love the concept of food economies and food sheds. And I will tell you that it is a tough lift to tell somebody in South Carolina that they want to buy this beer because the barley is local in Kalamazoo, right? Like somebody in South Carolina is like,
sure,
why should I care about that? I also think about, functionally what we're looking to get out of our ingredients, our raw materials. We're drilled in pretty tight. And I'll tell you that, right now, I've alluded to a little bit, I'm interested in raw materials. This will give you a little better sense of where I sit with it. So there's a group called the American Malting Barley Association. And they are the group that sort of stewards the research dollars and determines what barley varieties are going to be acceptable for malting in the United States. Bell's has been involved with that organization for a long time. Currently, I'm the chairperson of that organization. It's another group called the Hop Quality Group. That group is composed of fantastic hop-focused breweries. I believe that right now there are 42 of us. I'm president of that. I've been president of it since the inception and founding. I look at what local looks like, and in some ways, all of our ingredients are local in that we buy nothing from Mars, Jupiter, Alpha Centauri, right out. We're all right here. I will also tell you that, we Bell's bought a barley farm. We bought a farm years ago in sort of central Michigan, and we grew barley. And we were interested in doing that for a couple reasons. One of which because we wanted we have a great degree of interest in farming and understanding it and supporting it. And I'll tell you, barley farming is freaking hard. It's really hard. And we learned that, like multiple times, like, slammed our hand in the door time after time after time, it seemed like. And so I've got a lot of respect and, knowledge gained from, I guess they call it wisdom, right? When you get the knowledge from that experience.
Yeah.
So, are we involved with local farms? Absolutely. I think about some of the local hop concerns and local barley and malting concerns. Absolutely, we're involved, but it's not something we are leading with. I'll tell you, if you're drinking Two Hearted, there's local hops in that.
Oh,
Good to know.
Rob?
All right. I did have another one as I'm sitting here drinking, a roughly 5-year-old bottle of Bell's beer. Although, to be fair, I mean, like 2 years ago when I had one of these, everything just felt like it was all falling apart, and I just really was not sure what I was going to expect when I opened this.
And a 3-second reminder what you're drinking again.
I am drinking a Bell's Saturn from the Planet series, which of course came out a few years ago. We'll say it.
Half a decade ago.
Should I run downstairs and grab one and join you?
I mean, if you want to during the break, you sure can. I mean, and actually, like I said, right now, I can still taste the barrel. But I think when I first got this, it was more barrel forward than it was barley wine. And now it feels like the barley wine has really taken over. And I am a huge fan of barley wine. So this is definitely has always been up my alley. It has kind of loosened a little bit. So it's not as potent and like have that kick that I'm used to.
Yeah.
But the one thing I was thinking of is that obviously with the Planet series, it was your set of beers that was inspired by the Planet. So a orchestral piece by Gustav Holst, and then now you have the Leaves of Grass, which is inspired by poems for Walt Whitman. Where does that inspiration come from to make beers to be inspired by these things?
It is 100% from the very fertile mind of Larry Bell. Larry is very well read. He's super creative. He's intensely beer focused. And, when he pulls these things together, like, here's this thing I've been thinking about. By the way, he's been talking to us about another project that's overwhelming in scope and really cool. But to say, like, here's what I'm thinking, and this one, tastes like this. It's got these elements. It needs this much, smoke malt, whatever, wherever he's going with it, and bringing those things to life is really super interesting. We've got one of the people I have the honor of working with is just an incredibly talented formulating brewer. And for him to be able to take these and to drive them to success really shows a mastery of the brewing art. But absolutely, the genesis of these and the intent comes from Larry.
I mean, I am definitely as there's people that probably don't know that I am a person who does like to listen to a bit of classical, and from Carmina Burana to the Planets to like a lot of different suites. And one of those things that some of the people in the beer world were basically saying was you should get the whole set and then drink the whole set while listening to the Planets at the same time.
There you go.
Obviously, I have the whole set, but I have not done that yet. And obviously, we're talking about beers that are 5 and almost 6 years old, so they may not actually have the flavor intense that is going to go with the sweet. But
that Saturn's already kicking in at 11.5 too,
Yeah,
so you're going to be on your ass by the end of it.
Who are you talking to?
And I'm gonna guess that Mars, like the hops on Mars may have faded just a titch over time.
A tad.
And that's the part that I worry about, because Mars, like the bringer of Mars, that is like my favorite portion of the whole suite.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't want that beer to fail in that portion of the suite. But
maybe Mars is being brought on Mars's shield.
Yeah, true.
I kind of want to share something because Bell's Oberon is one of those few beers that definitely got me into expanding craft beer a little bit more. Dan and I could talk about all the time how we used to go to a bar in Royal Oak, and we would buy on $2 Tuesdays. We would get 2 bottles of Bell's Amber, then $2, 2 bottles of Two Hearted, then 2 bottles of Amber, and 2 bottles of, $16 in a night, and we have 8 Bell's beers, and we're crushing it.
Yeah,
but what was that?
Ahead.
I was gonna say that with Bell's Oberon though, there was I always tell the story because it means a lot to me. Is that there was a local craft beer store that had just opened up, and the first time I went there was Oberon Day, and that was Zatuna Liquor over in Rochester Hills, just south of M59 on Rochester Road. And for a good 10 years straight on Oberon Day, I showed up to Zatuna Liquor, and this was the first year I missed it because of the whole between COVID and me moving to Ypsilanti. So Ypsilanti to Rochester is a little bit of a hike. So how are you guys handling the COVID? Because obviously Eccentric Cafe's closed. You guys are doing still gangbusters in regards to distro, but what have you guys had to change with all of these changes?
Oh, fucking what haven't we changed? It's just
right.
I mean, this is a major part of what we're doing right now is just making sure that our staff and the beer lovers and our vendors, that everybody's safe. We've thrown a ton of people out of the brewery. They're working from home. I got to tell you that it's like work from home sounds great. Yeah, you living with a 5-year-old, like that is not so dreamy. We are wearing face coverings, very aggressive, practicing social distancing, clean. I mean, it's like there is a laundry list. We have a group that meets daily for an hour to talk about what are the changes and how do we enact them, and temperature screenings before you come in. And we've been very aggressive with it from the start because we recognize that if we F this up, it's not like we've got this endless supply of brewers that somebody else is just going to come in, or somebody's going to be able to load a truck or run a packaging line. We really need to protect our people, and we've been very intent on that. And it's scary. It's scary for everybody, and it's for us. I think one of the most important parts of Bell's is the internal culture of the brewery. We are super open and loving and respectful, and I mean, having people be scared because they've got maybe a vulnerable person living at home or whatever else, it's distracting. And we're very focused on making great beer in a place that is core value, safe, quality, respectful, responsible. And so it's really, I feel like it's there's like this balloon that's been poked with these sharp little sticks in all these directions. It's trying, but we're successfully holding the balloon together. And the number of I've been talking to third shift. On Wednesday I came in to see all the folks on third shift and or first or second or wherever, and like the overriding sentiment is like, I like coming to work. I love getting a paycheck, and I love coming to a place that is not, out of control. I'm sure we've all been to, we're in Michigan, so I'm sure all of us have been to a Meijer, and you're at Meijer and you're like, well, clearly your chin's not going to catch COVID. It's kind of like here. I mean, to me, this is like wearing the mask, wearing the face covering like that is like, it's like wearing safety glasses on the top of your head. Or actually, I'm thinking about going to Meijer with my pants just around my ankles, because technically I'm wearing pants then, right? The fleshy protuberance is just kind of hanging out there, like no problem. I'm safe.
You're wearing your pants. That's all that matters.
The sign says no shoes, no shirt, no mask. So I mean, why even bother with wearing them on your ankles? You might trip. That's a hazard to you.
That's true. It doesn't say no pants, so you don't even have to put them on.
I don't want to see anybody's fleshy protuberance at the Myers stage, okay?
No, the masks that are not covering the nose is like just like you look at it and like seriously, dude, it
I
does
see it all the
look like
time too.
You're
It makes
basically
no
wearing
sense.
your pants.
Like,
Yeah.
this all look like,
Yeah.
can I help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mask. You're like, put your mask on.
Hey, well, no, sorry, it's our family show.
What is happening?
I was gonna, after the whole COVID thing, I had a question about levity, but we fucking went so far past levity. I want to know, minus Bell's beer, when I open up your fridge, what am I gonna see, beer wise?
All right, so right now inside my fridge, one of my kids goes to college out in Colorado, and he got ripped back from there, and we had to go back and clean out his dorm room sort of last minute. He's in Fort Collins. So while I was there, we went from Kalamazoo to Fort Collins, and we were back home 45 hours later.
Did you drive? You drove that? Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It was quite a shot. But while I was there, I had the opportunity to social distance inside of a parking lot, and my great buddies over at Odell's. We did like a little prisoner exchange of beer. Got some awesome Odell IPA and a couple of other their beers in there. That's pretty nice. I got some little bit of Russian River, a little bit of New Glarus.
Little Russian River.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. They're really. The folks at Russian River are super good friends. Vinny and I have run the Hop Quality Group together. Like, have been. There are more people who do that, but who are involved in that than us. But we've been in there from day one together. So
That's my whale.
Is it
Russian River?
Yeah.
Can I go get one and drink one in front of you?
You should do that.
Oh, that would be so mean.
And then pour it. Take one sip.
I have 30 seconds to go sprint.
Yeah, go for it.
Go for it. While he's sprinting over there, let's cover all of our bases. Don't forget to go check out North Center Brewing over in Northville, Michigan. I think this first segment's going to run a little longer, which is perfectly fine. We're having a great time here with John. But go check out North Center Brewing, Northville, Michigan, south of Baseline Road. They are open. So you can go inside, make sure you're social distancing. It might be best to call ahead to make sure there are seats available.
Don't pull in Arizona, though.
Don't pull in Arizona.
Don't cause the Armageddon to happen.
But that's when Ben Affleck shows up and wants to marry Liv Tyler, and Bruce Willis kills himself. Sacrifices.
Come on now.
All right, so John's back.
What do you got?
I feel like he went and grabbed Happy Hops IPA from Russian River. I don't even know what that is.
Nice.
I was saying,
you know that beer?
It's a Pliny.
I do.
Yeah. An old Geyer Brothers was an old Santa Rosa brewery, and they kind of resurrected one of the beers, and that's it's a nice beer.
So we have a question that's kind of been lingering, so I will ask it as it's been as you're working on your are you mixing the bush with it?
This is something I would do right here.
Oh, he's using the bush to open up the bottle.
Oh
no!
That's
I was waiting for it to fail like the draft top that I have, and he's like, no, it ain't gonna fail.
Decades of
I've been this shit for 30-something years, man. Like, it ain't failing.
Decades of experience.
So a question from the chat, and I know we kind of talked about it briefly before we went on air. So from the chat, it says Bell's has publicly shared their opposition to the increase in self-distribution limits. Can we get a thought as to how this affects Bell's and why they have that stance?
Yeah, so like I'm like the production guy. Like I'm all about beer and beer quality. This is on the distribution side. My avid co-conspirator Matt Moberly, he would know a lot more about this. He's VP of Sales and Marketing. I will also tell you that Larry Bell is very intently involved. I think that we at Bell's have worked with our distributor partners for a long time, and we were successful and have been successful, continue to be successful under, sort of like in the existing paradigm of distribution. I think that distribution adds incredible value. Like those, they are our partners. In terms of why we would oppose that or not, that's not a question for me. Like I don't know that. And it's not one that I'm like, I got enough stuff on my plate. I don't need to go there.
So do we know any of your beers? Anything that you've created within your 20 years at Bell's?
I think all of our beers are sort of iterative and communities. And I think about this from the, when you look at the summation of the beer, it is, raw material selection. It is equipment design, procedural development, the formulation of it, this much of this much of that. What's the fermentation what are the fermentation characteristics? So temperatures and times and how the beer is treated. How do we actually get it in the package and what package are we putting it in? And these are all sort of like individual pieces that need to come together to make a beer. So in some ways, like we could write a recipe and say you put this much of this in and that much of that in, and I could make vastly different beers if that was the only piece I had. If that was the only piece of information that I had, I could take that and make very, very different beers. I mean, like you're drinking this. We're talking about the series there, and the time that's in package super affects the flavor of the beer.
Right.
So is that part of the formulation? Like until you.
So is there one that you're most proud of being a part of?
I would say, if I was going to say something, I'd say Two Hearted. Absolutely. I mean, that beer has shifted, like when in the initial place that beer started and how we refined it. And some of that is that there was this big target, like all of this Two Hearted could be anywhere in here. And we refined that, and like everything from the way that we are, the malting partners that we're using, and the percentages of those specific malts that we're using, and how we drive those malts. To me, this is the brewer's high art, is to be able to have control of that. And I'll tell you that, if you're brewing a recipe that says use 10 pounds of pale ale malt, that's interesting. But I think far more interesting would be to say use 5 pounds of malt that the barley has been sourced of this variety from these regions, and that it's treated in the malt house in these ways. Like, here are the drying conditions, that how much is pushed, and it even the variation year to year in that barley supply. So how are we going to react to that to make sure that we have something consistent in color, in flavor, in extract? These are the things that I think really define. To me, great beer is consistent beer, and to be able to have the mastery of that, to be able to hit that time after time, is really important for me. So again, that's not the work of like a person. I mean, you could be a person doing that in a small, in a very small brewery where you individually are doing every single thing, but that's not, to me, that would be interesting, but it would be it's not as big a challenge. And I like challenges. I like being able to get great beer to a broad swath of beer lovers, and to have that consistently, have it be consistent and excellent. That's something that's driven me from the earliest inception of the brewery.
I will say that no matter where I go, and I like to travel for beer, it amazes me, because I remember when Two Hearted first came out, that I can always count on a Two Hearted to be there. No matter what size bar or what country I'm in, you can find Two Hearted.
I'll tell you, to me, that is the highest praise that I could, more so than you made an amazing beer once. I don't give a shit about that. It's being able to do it consistently.
Yep, you can always count on it.
sure.
Dan, you got any more questions for this gentleman?
Not really. I do want to say earlier, though, I started to bring it up before we went on to a different tangent. You were talking about what we were drinking earlier. In all honesty, the first craft beer I ever had, now what we're talking about is Bell's Two Hearted. Before that, I was a malt liquor kind of guy, drinking 40s,
King
that
Cobra.
sort of thing, drinking King Cobra like it was water. It's funny because at that bar, we used to hang out at a bar in Royal Oak. That's the first place I ever had my first craft beer, and it just happened to be the Two Hearted that Ken bought for me. So that just kind of gives you the.
Wait, you're like 30 years older than me. How did I introduce you to craft beer?
I was drinking 40s before that, man. I was
It happens.
True.
Yeah, I was hanging out in the hood drinking malt liquor. So it's funny the kind of impact beers like that have had, especially going back to the earlier days of craft beer, that it's had, like, it influenced my life. I wouldn't be drinking, Rev Coffee Stout from Parrish if it wasn't for that Bell's Hearted. So it's really kind of fascinating.
Well, I
kind of
see.
impact it
I
had.
think what Bell's has put into the state of Michigan, because they are Michigan's largest craft brewery. Got to get that dig in. I said it, nobody else. But that's as Wendy said. Like, you go to any bar, especially now. No matter how divey it is, you are going to get a Two Hearted, or if it's the winter or the spring, you're going to get an Oberon. No matter what, both of those beers are usually available, draft, bottle, etc. Like, and it's not like it used to always be. Oh, you might be able to get a Fat Tire, or you might be able to get
Killian's.
Killian's. I should have said, not Fat
Or a
Tire.
Newcastle.
Oh, I
Those
love
are the two.
Newcastle.
I do too.
I should have bought Newcastle when I was out.
That would basically be the stuff that I would get in the bars, with it being, Killian's and Newcastle.
Yep.
But I like my first Bell's beer was courtesy of my brother. It was the oatmeal stout, and it was back in the day when it was just simply the white label that
Yep.
said oatmeal stout on it.
like 2003 or something, yeah.
Way back for sure.
What do you want to see yourself doing 5 years from now? Do you still want to see yourself at Bell's? Do you want, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? This is like a terrible interview question. I'm interviewing you for a job. Where do you see yourself? No, but you've been in the industry for a decent amount of time. When do you feel like you're going to be hanging it up sometime soon and just living off of everybody? No, okay.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I love what I do. I've loved what I've done my whole career. I think that's an incredible gift to have that opportunity, to have a job that I'm excited to go to every day. I'll tell you, my job is different today than I thought it was going to be in January, but it's still exciting, and it's still great to be able to make sure that we're getting great beer out to people who are kind of needing it at this time of in these super crazy times. I've always had a really strong attraction to education. My whole family are sort of university level educators, and was the black sheep to go into something where you made something. And so that education piece has been very important my whole time. I'll tell you, there's nothing better for me than educating a young brewer, teaching about quality or something else. And I've had that opportunity. I taught at Siebel for 25 years. And that's been fantastic, to be able to influence the development of the beer culture, the overall quality of beer that we make in the United States, for that time. It is my absolute hope that I continue to do that. I work with an incredibly talented group at Bell's, and I look to support that group for as long as I'm useful there.
And are you guys still you're still partnering with Kalamazoo Valley and Western Michigan? Is that still going on?
Yeah, so to a little background on that. So Kalamazoo Valley Community College and Western Michigan have a kind of a joint brewing program. We developed a internship through that in partnership with them, where one of their students would come in annually and be paid to come to Bell's for a year and to learn and to do some project work and to work in brewing. And this year we've suspended that because of the COVID stuff. Absolutely, our intention is to have that back, and we've got a bunch of people who've gone through that internship program. We were actually pulling one person internally at Bell's and one person externally from KVCC, and in many cases, people were both at Bell's and going through that program, and like great. But we were bringing sort of two people into the program every year through that, and really giving them a holistic sense of what how the whole brewery works. That's very important to understand that, that although you may master your area, there's an area upstream and downstream and next to you supporting it. So yeah, I'm super psyched about that program. That's a solid program, and I absolutely love supporting it.
So we are wrapping up, but I kind of want to give everyone a final chance to ask any more questions. So I'm going to start off with Dan. I'm going to actually go run. This little fridge right here is filled with beer. So I am going to go grab an Oberon while Dan asks this question.
All right. So I know you're not really into brewing anymore. It's been a while. But what style of beer would you bring to Bell's if you had a chance to go in and start brewing whatever you wanted as of right now? What would it be?
Oh, well, I mean, in terms of not being involved with, I absolutely am involved with what we're doing and how we're doing and all this. I'll tell you, really, what's a lot of interest to me right now is Kvike. We're playing with that and playing with some. I'm interested in stressing those yeasts in a different way to try and drive some additional flavors out of them. I think they're very interesting. We have, at Bell's, we've got the analytical resources, the GC, the GCMS, the HPLC, the ICP, all of these things to be able to really dive in and understand it. So that's what I'm kind of interested in that. I'm quite curious, Does that answer your question, Dan?
It does. What's the style you would pull up though? What if you could brew something right now? If you could decide, hey, we're going to do this as of right now, just unilaterally, what would it be?
Bell's Three-Hearted.
Three-Hearted.
Yeah. Three eyes. I do have that. I do have that ability, and I do play in that. And we pop stuff out through our pub all the time. That's super interesting. So, I'm not going to show all the cards, man. You're asking me what's the next great thing? What's the secret project you're working on? That's going to be
that's fair. That's fair.
Can you tell us the boiling times and?
Here, allow me to tell you, it's a beer that's
Wendy, you got any more questions?
Yeah. So mine isn't exactly about the beer. It's more about the culture of Bell's.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite events in the entire world is Eccentric Day. So I'm just wondering, one, do you attend Eccentric Day? And what is one of the favorite costumes you've seen?
Oh my God. Yeah. I love going to Eccentric Day. I do some volunteer work, and for the last couple of years, that volunteer work has occurred on the day and the day after Eccentric Day up north. So I need to beat feet out of there, which sucks because I love being at Eccentric Day, in the late evening, because it's just a fantastic energy. In terms of some of the my favorite stuff, there's a woman who shows up every year who's just incredibly just coiffed, and I mean she really puts a lot of energy into it. Skip, obviously from the east side of the state, shows up and spends a lot of time putting together just fantastic creative stuff. There's another person, this woman who shows up, who for a number of years was showing up with headgear that was based on men's underwear bedazzled, on her hair. I mean, just super stuff. And then there's this guy, Don Jones. A couple of his kids worked for the brewery years ago. He's a retired Kalamazoo teacher. He lives down in New Mexico. And every year he shows up with, always has got a little trinket that he gives away.
I have one of those.
Yeah. I mean, isn't he just awesome? So,
yes.
I mean, those are the people. I mean, we got all kinds of fantastic folk that show up, but I mean, those are some of the, the people that I always look for. And I always try and take a picture with them every year because I want to remember them, I want to remember that.
Yep.
that great day. So,
Rob?
great question, Wendy. That's a great question. That is absolutely the culture of bells right there. I mean, just get house crazy, super fun, and hopefully we're being responsible.
Oh yeah.
I guess for myself, I was a little curious about brewery design, and obviously you've worked as brewery design consultant. One of the things I was wondering about, just kind of real quick, some for those that are out there that are looking to build a brewery. Obviously, we've got quite a few licenses that are out there that are still looking to put their brewery on the map, and I guess you can go and find that on mibeermap.com.
Yeah.
For some of those locations that will be coming forth. But are there some of those do's and don'ts for your brewery setups?
Yeah, absolutely. I will tell you that so when I was doing my SAW work, building breweries, this was about in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the last brewery slump occurred, and all of a sudden there was a lot of breweries that had gone out of business. And one of the ways that I pivoted my business was I would take breweries out, like the physical equipment out after they had failed. There's an amazing museum in Philadelphia called the Munter Museum, and it's a pathological surgery museum from the 1800s. And this Dr. Munter looked at disease in its final form, and from there, you only need to see like one 28-pound ovarian cyst before you realize, like, oh, this must have grown from something smaller, and oh, this is eventually going to kill them, and maybe if we took it out when it was only 5 pounds, that might be better. And so this sort of like pathology approach is something I got the chance to see in breweries, like when things fuck up. Breweries are dead. How did they die? Well, they kind of fucked up from maybe the owner's doing a bunch of blow, but also like if the beer is just sour and bad.
I 100% you said that statement from experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to interrupt because I'm like, that was such a very specific reason that brewery went out of business. I'm like, oh, something. We're not going to say anything more, but I just wanted to affirm that was an actual reason.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, not just one either. It's a disease progression that happens there. But, one of the things I would see is that these breweries that were not able to produce quality beer, in a lot of cases, they were hampered by the equipment. And I will tell you that, one of those places is you build a brewery with a flat floor, you sort of think like, I should have good equipment, and the floor is going to be kind of expensive to slope it. And you know what? I'm just going to have, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hire I'm going to hire an $8 an hour guy to come squeegee the floor. The $8 an hour guy who's going to squeegee the floor, he looks back at you from the mirror when you're shaving in the morning, when you're scrubbing your teeth. And that employee is not consistent, I'll tell you. And so you end up with something that's just it's unsustainable. You need to, I really feel like from brewery design, you need to make things so that right is easy, and or as easy as possible. And so that's the piece I would recommend, is that Dan Carey from New Glarus and I are we've known each other for a long time. I really enjoy talking to him and vice versa. And the thing we talk about probably more than anything is like brewery floors. It's totally wonky. It shouldn't affect beer quality. We talk a lot about malt too, but that's an important piece. Make sure it's right. That's how you build a lasting and long-standing business, I think.
So I know you have your hands full right now, but I am going to institute a challenge once things go back to normal, because I think there is a job for you of a brewing equipment that needs to be released from its building. It is no, not Copper Hop. I'm talking Etouffee over in Southfield. So if you don't know where Etouffee was above the AMC Southfield off of Telegraph. So this
I had no idea that was even up there. Wow.
So this brewing equipment was put in, and then the wall was put in.
Yeah.
So It is a live business now. Who knows if AMC's, or Star Southfield or whatever it's called is going to be in business here in a year.
No,
but
they're already closing.
They closed that one.
Like
Yeah.
closed?
Yes,
Yeah.
close. It's done.
Perfect timing. I tell you what, John, if you can get that brewing equipment out, I would be thoroughly impressed. Because that is one that's been closed for, I could look it up, which we're going to be releasing numbers here soon over on the Better on Draft website. But I'm pretty sure that's been closed for 8 years now, and the brewing equipment's just been sitting there.
I'll tell you, I pulled brewing equipment out of some really goofy places. I remember I tore the front off of a National Historic registered building in West Virginia to pull some really nice German brewing equipment out of a place there and got it all back together again. I will also tell you that I was a younger man then. And that somehow maneuvering a shooting.
Come on, younger men. You can make them do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's gonna do it. I know. I know your time's valuable. I appreciate you so much for coming in and giving us a call, spending over an hour with us. Jesus. The one request I have, since you guys have so much extra time and you have the chance to lager maybe some more beers, is to make an alt beer.
Oh, Ken.
They've made one alt beer in 2013. That's all I've seen that I could research on.
We have made some other stuff like Baron von Nordlicht.
I don't even know what that is, but
Oh,
now I have
okay.
to
All
look
right,
it up
well,
a little more.
Never mind. We're just gonna pull that right out of there then. I do love the alt beers. I do love the Kolsch beers. The beers of the Upper Rhine, beautiful beers. Yeah, these are pretty tasty, crushable, perfect for summer, right?
Exactly. So I expect in maybe a few months we're going to see the Bell's Alt beer here soon. John, thank you so much for coming. We will let you go. To everybody else still on the stream, we are going to talk about the news here in about 10 minutes. We will take a quick break. We'll be right back with the Better on Draft podcast.
Thank you. Awesome to be here.
Thank you.
City, trouble in my mind. I'm way too young and pretty. Things to be unkind. Time is all we have now, so let's make something while we can. I'm headed for the city. Make me start again. Conversation now and then. Gotta go, gotta get it. Don't make things go south, baby. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, 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 oh. I'm headed for the city. See what I can unwind. Always gotta start it to dictate, make it in this life. Time is all we have now, so let's make something while we can. I'm headed for the city to make me start again. Conversation now and then. Gotta go, gotta get it. Don't make things go south, baby.
And we are back. Wow, what a great segment with John Mallett over at Bell's Brewing. I appreciate him coming on and talking about beer, and just definitely a great time for sure, guys. We're going to be doing a quick segment too about the news, about 10-15 minutes worth of it. So real quick, round the horn, starting with Wendy. What are you drinking?
I just switched to a Tavor special that I had gotten from Fort George Fanzine. It is definitely an interesting can. I'm gonna have to read it later when I can put my glasses on.
Well, that is, it's kind of hard to see because we have a full box square, but that's Tavor code Robert, by the way, Robear. Speaking of Robert, Dan, what are you drinking?
Oh, hey. So I'm still working on that Rev Coffee Stout, but I also pulled out one of my all-time favorites, the Deschutes Black Butte Porter.
Oh wow, that's such a good. I haven't had that. I feel like I say that all
Such
the
a
time.
consistent one.
Yeah.
It's a great beer.
Rob, what are you drinking?
So I made a stop over at Ferndale Project, and I picked up one of the new ones called Virtual Summer, which is a triple New England IPA that was double dry hopped with Waiti and Sabro hops.
That's too many words.
Is that what you were pouring into Kool-Aid Man?
Oh yeah,
Dude, that's what I picture happening right before he breaks through the side of their house. Someone pouring a can of something that they just fucking bust through and
Yeah,
breaks
but
down the wall.
see, here you go. Here's a Family Guy missed opportunity is where it's the Kool-Aid Man, but it's beer, so he goes through a wall and then he gets pulled over.
oh
Lord.
yes.
So as prior to the break, I'm
Sad.
drinking Autonomous Collective from Batch Brewing because it's the only alt beer in this world. Fucking A. I tomorrow I brew my beer though, so come next week I will update you guys on how that went.
You making an alt beer tomorrow?
I'm
What's going on?
gonna do the block party, Amber. I'm gonna get my feet wet a little. I haven't come up with the name of it yet, but maybe we'll do a poll or something like that, and we'll come up with the name of it for the next week. Because I think the first beer that I make with my own, not necessarily recipe, but research and recipe, is gonna be the Journalistic Integrity beer. I don't know what kind of beer it is yet, but that's obviously what I'm going to have to call it.
It's obviously gonna be an IPA. What are you talking
No,
about?
it won't be an IPA, that's for sure. First of all, I don't drink IPAs. My girlfriend doesn't drink IPAs. So if I'm going to make a keg of something, it needs to be something we both drink, which is perfectly fine. So it's going to be a brown and red, amber alt, maybe a wheat. But I also have a Guinness draft right here,
Nice.
and a Guinness draft right here.
Wow,
So
okay.
I reinvigorated. I love double fisting with the same beer. I don't like drinking two of the different beers at the same time. Which is a weird thing. Like for me, like when I go through a flight, like I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll say it's a 5-beer flight. Like sip each, and then I'll just drink number 1, and then number 2, and number 3, number 4. Like, well, not necessarily in that order. It's the order I want to drink it in. But I finished
Go in
that
the order
beer.
of the ones I like the
When
least too.
when I drink a
Oh,
flight,
really?
you can tell which ones I like because they're the last ones left.
Yeah, the ones I hate in a flight are getting drank
First, yep.
Try
Yeah.
to drink those up.
Yep, those are done, and then move on to the next one.
All right, so everyone else in the world's going to hear it, but you're just going to have to trust me for everyone to be quiet for the next 8 seconds.
Here is Robert with the beer news.
So he might not be able to hear it, but that was the Robert Beer News drop.
It's the only thing I could think it would be. I'm like, I'm gonna take a shot. Screw it. That's what it is. All right. So I guess really a couple of things that that I was coming across. Actually, one thing for some of the people who are local in the Metro Detroit area. One of our breweries, friends of ours at 734 Brewery, is looking for a new brewer. So owner and friend of the show, Brian Jones Chance, which was on our show way back in November of 2018 on episode 152. You don't have to look that up, Ken, because I already did. They are looking for a new hire, and they are looking to interview as many people of color and women as possible. So if you are interested in becoming a brewer for 734, you can reach out to them. There is an email address to C-Suite, C-S-U-I-T-E, like C, in a suite hotel room, at 734brewing.com.
That'll be in the show notes too.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Really, one thing that I came across was, looking at the collabs that have been piling up for the Black is Beautiful beer that Weathered Souls out in San Antonio has put forth to hopefully get some breweries that will make this beer with the purpose of donating the beer proceeds to local foundations that support police brutality reform and legal defenses for those who have been wronged. Choose your own entity to donate to local organizations that support equality and inclusion, and obviously commit to the long-term work of equality. As it stands right now, there are 540 breweries that have pledged to make this beer, which is going to be an imperial stout. Some of the more national names, as we generally tend to see in terms of like getting trades and porch bombs, as everybody likes to call them, the likes of Great Notion, Hoofhearted, Horace, Jester King, Other Half, Prairie, The Answer, Trillium, Urban South, and Weldworks, which I am a fan of Weldworks. As far as Michigan is concerned, our home state, we've got 13 of the 540. Those would be Avron, Brewery Faison, Double Shift, Eastern Market, Edelbrow, Five Shores, Founders, Hopland Brewstillery, Liberty Street, North Center Brewing, Speciation, Tulip City, and Unruly.
And Batch just announced today that they're going to take part as well.
And so that makes 14 right there.
Where's Double Shift?
Double Shift was, what did it do with it?
I mean, I've been staring at Michigan breweries for the last 3 weeks straight. I don't recall Double Shift as one of them.
I think I looked it up too.
Forgive me.
I mean, that was what it showed up on the list, and I thought I still had the list up for some reason. I gotta bring it up again.
So it's not a big deal. I'm pretty sure Double Shift, as I'm looking it up, is out of Missouri. Which I mean that might have
Michigan.
Yeah,
I mean,
the thing is that
it might have been a mistype, since I and O are next to each other, and Missouri is MO and Michigan is MI. So I'm guessing whatever list he may have pulled. That's the only thing I can come up with, because I'm like, I saw the list and I'm like, I've never heard of Double Shift before.
Because it's coming straight from the website, and the funny thing is that the website that is used here is built almost exactly the same way as the website that's used for Altogether, the beer that Other Half did for the collaboration for hospitality workers rather. And the way people were entering their locations was completely disoriented. It was to the point where when you went under United States, there were 5 breweries that were listed for United States, and then you had to go to the individual states to find those breweries. And there were some breweries that didn't put their postal state abbreviation in correctly, so it was just kind of a mess.
So we're just gonna blame Double Shift.
So we're gonna blame Double Shift, which apparently is in Kansas City, Michigan. I didn't know we had a Kansas City, Michigan.
Wow,
we do. Okay.
But that is where that is where Double Shift is, at least according to the website, is that they're in Kansas City, Michigan. So, in looking at the list, I guess I'm just kind of thinking, in a perfect world, I'd love to see all of the breweries making this. Clearly, we've got well over 8,000 breweries. For it to be 540, we're basically talking about a little over 6% of the country's breweries that are putting the effort into to make this. And really in no way, I don't feel like a brewery's decision to not make the beer is complicit in the inequality of Black lives. Like I said, while I would love to see all the breweries to do it, I know that's not going to happen. It could be that from with them not wanting to do it to them not having the money to have the resources to purchase the ingredients to do it. I mean, we're still in a COVID situation where breweries are basically just now starting to open here. And I'm sorry, Dan, I don't know what the hell is going to happen to Arizona because y'all getting fucked up right now.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's all
It
those
may,
casinos.
it may get to a point where
It
you
could
guys
be.
actually shut down. And I'm not expecting, a large distribution footprint either. But I would like to see more of the larger craft breweries like Bell's, like Boston Beerfish Head, whatever they want to call themselves, or even Yingling. I mean, you've got these bigger. Obviously, Yingling is like one of the biggest producers of craft beer in the country. It would be nice to see it, even if they didn't even leave Pennsylvania. But I think with the bigger breweries, for them to make it would make a bigger statement towards the cause, and it is just something
I mean, not to put it lightly, and we know our feelings on the brewery itself, but Founders is a pretty big
They are.
juggernaut within the craft beer industry. I mean, they're like within Michigan, you have literally it goes Founders, Bell's, and then literally 10% of Bell's production is what New Holland does at number 3. So when you go Boston Beer Co. Yingling, number 3, whatever it is here in Nevada, or whoever the third largest craft brewery is in the state, like Bell's and Founders, as saying Founders is still craft at the time, are still in the top 10 with what they're doing. So it's I agree, but I would not sell it lightly with what Founders is doing within it, especially with Founders history.
And this being one of the few times that I will actually say their name, because I give them a little bit of respect for it. If you ask me if I'm going to drink their beer, that is going to be a completely different answer. To which then I will refer to them by their other name.
So you're a craft beer fan. You have a favorite brewery, and you want your brewery to do this. How do you get your brewery? What do you go and tell them?
You basically tell them that you go to the Weathered Souls website and you apply to be one of the other breweries that are putting forth this effort. The recipe is up there, so really anybody can brew it. But they have the recipe, they have the label, which actually kind of a quick shout out to Five Shores, because they posted a little bit earlier today that they are obviously one of the breweries that are making it, but they gave a quick shout out to their label printer. Their label printer is going to print all of the labels for them for free, and was not expecting that at all. And basically, they put a picture of the invoice in one of the Facebook groups, and it was like a good 200 plus or something like that to print the labels, and they marked it, and the printing the label company was doing this for free.
Well,
So
that's
it was really
another $200 to whatever charity and group that they decide to put through. What kind of beer is this going to be?
So it is going to be an imperial stout.
Oh, thank the Lord, it's not another
Yeah.
IPA.
Yeah.
But they also get to put their
Just
own
looking it
spin
up.
on it, which I really like.
Yeah.
And I also like the fact that they put out a homebrew version, because I
Okay.
know a lot of friends in homebrew clubs that are also doing this beer.
For some of us who don't have a 10-barrel system at home, it's nice.
It would be nice to have that. That's good to hear. I'm trying to find a list, Rob. Where's the list of where we can see who's brewing it?
So if you go to it's all one word, blackisbeautiful.beer is where the list, where all of the information is, from the reasons for joining the cause, where Weathered Souls is putting their money towards, downloading the recipe, downloading the artwork for the label, and then at the very bottom is the list of all of the breweries, which you can go through those by state or country in some cases, in terms of who is brewing it, because there's one in Scotland, there's a few breweries in Canada that are making it. I don't even know where Bouche du Rouge is, the Rhone is. It's France. We got a brewery in France who is making it as
I'm
well.
looking at the list, and I don't know where this list came from because it says Eldebrow in Flint, Michigan, and I'm like, that's either Arbor or Ipsy. That ain't Flint. So hopefully,
Yeah, that's on the brewery for entering that information in, because I think they really are the ones responsible for putting that stuff in there. Because yeah, I didn't really pay attention too much of the city except for Double Shift, because I was sitting there thinking, where the fuck is Kansas City, Michigan? I was like, well, you know what? I don't know where the city is. It's probably up north.
I was
It's
waiting.
a
Yeah,
really long drive.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
I'm one of
I
those
look
You
on
drive
people.
all over Michigan and still have a hard time finding it.
I look on here, they have one brewery listed twice. And then they have one that doesn't even exist in Arizona. It's like, I'm trying to find this right now. It's like, where is this place?
I'm
So-
guessing that it's a lot of people who are putting in. Maybe they're rushing it. There's not someone who's verifying these types of things because there's so many other fucking things to do. You know, we're talking about this and the great thing that they're doing, but we're still in the middle of a fucking pandemic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
and
know,
it's
resources
tough
are limited.
it's tough to really put a comparison with all of the other collaborative efforts because of this. Because with other half any all together, looking at that list, obviously, like I said, their website is almost exactly the same build out. So putting that information in is, could be some fat fingering of putting some wrong stuff in. But
Maybe
what I found-
we'll reach out to see if we can help them with the data entry so that it's one less
Yeah.
thing off their plate.
But what I found out from altogether that it was 529 breweries for that, and for the one the collab before that, that I remember was the Resilience IPA from Sierra Nevada, which they had
We had quite a few of those.
they had close to 1,400 breweries at that time. But of course, we weren't going through a global pandemic at the time. So again, I'd like to see the numbers bigger, really for all of them. But it's with the circumstance. It's with the time and the money to be able to make a beer that you're going to donate all the proceeds to when you're trying to survive in a time where you can barely be open, or be able to do carry out, pickup, delivery, and it's a tough time. So that's what I've got for that.
I did
So-
notice though, because I was looking real quick, episode 196.5. So if you guys have not listened to that episode, that is with Urban Roots, which is outside of Sacramento or inside Sacramento, and one of the founders is actually it's a black owned brewery. So the founder itself, so he was on necessarily the food side. So the other guy, Peter Hoey, is the brewmaster part. But the one thing I did love about that interview was that you could see the food stayed separate from the beer, and everyone's happy. So take that for what it is. But I'm sorry, Wendy, what were you saying?
I just wanted to say that while we were having this conversation, Tito Huffman in the chat asked, "Is there a black-owned brewery in Michigan?" And I know I recently saw a list.
So I keep kind of going back and forth because obviously 734 Brewing in Ypsilanti is one. I have always been told that Creston out in the Grand Rapids area is one as well. But I keep swearing that I saw something about it being sold, and I don't know who it's been sold to, or if there's any validity of the fact that it actually has been sold. So I guess until I hear otherwise, Creston is the other one.
I did recently see a list, so I will look for that and I will post it on Better on Draft so that we have that information.
Yeah.
Nice. If you get it to us tonight, we'll make sure we put it in the show notes. If not, obviously check it on Better on Draft, and we'll add it to the show notes afterwards. But that's going to do it for this episode, Better on Draft. So Again, we are done with the podcast portion. We're going to be playing a few games of Jackbox right after this. You guys are welcome to join us. So this is where we kind of end this portion so that we get off hot mic. What we realized last week was that there was an issue because I was streaming in 60 FPS and my internet isn't fast enough to stream in at 60 FPS without like a minute delay. So I dropped it down a little bit. I dropped down a few things. So this is going to be a few week testing as we kind of get this straight, but I did drop it to 40 FPS, and I believe I also changed the spec ratio a little bit. And when I was watching it, how our stream goes, it wasn't having too much lag. So stay tuned to the Better on Draft Better on Draft Facebook page. You can like us, Better on Draft Facebook, Better on Draft Twitter, Bod Podcast Instagram, betterondraft.com is all of our information. You'll see our kill shots and everything like that in there. What I'm actually doing is trying to see if I can see, and the website that I went to, which is porchdrinking.com, does not have anything for Michigan in regards to black-owned breweries. So hopefully we can either resolve that or figure that out. Stay tuned for more details, including our interview with Representative Wenzel about all of the laws that are changing, including the fact that as a freshman rep, it's her name as one of the big, like the top billed names for this bill. So check out that interview. Great interview. She is a huge craft beer fan, and she couldn't stop talking to us about her love for ArcLight, including their sours.
Kindred.
Oh, terrible.
So
Man,
again,
I wish I could have got off work in time.
So stay tuned. Again, we're going to go right into Jackbox right after this. It's going to be about a 5-minute break for everyone to use the restroom, get beer and everything. So no matter what you think of your beer, we think it's...
Hold my blunt.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I forgot all about that. Still funny.
Too.
Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Peace.